Hello everyone, I know it's been a really long time since I've done the video, but I'm back and I'm here to do a request for a dance slash cheerleader crop top. Now I'm going to show you the easiest, simplest way to make this crop top. No hassle, no fuss, no frustration, just easy, simple, and you can take this tutorial and make this crop top your own. So what you're going to need is some fabric. What I am working with today is spandex. It's a 4-way stretch, which is really good. A tip about 4-way stretch is basically it stretches anywhere you pull it. This fabric is more of a silkier spandex, so it has a little bit of shine to it. And this is great for when you're making either dance or cheerleading outfits. It's great for bathing suits. If you want a sexy dress, you can use this. A little tip about working with spandex, lycra, cotton, anything that stretches, you want to use a stitch that's made for that stretch. And that will either be an overcast stitch or a zigzag stitch. If you have those programmed into your sewing machine, you can use those. A lot of sewing machines, older ones, may not have that overcast stitch. So the best stitch to use is a zigzag stitch. Why? Because if you use a straight stitch, when you go to either put it on or for it to stretch, those seams are going to just rip that thread apart, and you don't want that. So you want something that's going to stretch along with your fabric. So again, zigzag or overcast stitch. So I'm using my fabric. What I have here is just a little camisole of my daughter's, which is essentially at the top, and she wrote on it, I don't know why, but this is pretty much the same design as you would buy a regular crop top. What I'm going to use, what I found is easiest for me, instead of making my own straps, is rollover elastic. And you see how stretchy that is? This is perfect. I'm going to be using that for the collar as well as the armholes, and for the shoulder straps I'm actually going to use strips. I cut out 1.5 strips, and then what I'm going to do is fold these, and we'll get to that when it's time for that step. But I'm just going to use that to crisscross in the back, and I'm just going to do a basic crisscross. I'm not going to do anything fancy. If you want to, you can just keep along with this so it's all matching. I'll see how I want this to go in the end. But anyway, simple things that you have already around the house. You don't have to fuss or hassle with making a pattern if you don't want to, or you don't have to worry about trying to find the right size and the right style for your child. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is fold this in half. So I'm just going to fold this in half and try to make this as even as possible to the other side. I always work on the wrong side of my fabric. So what I'm going to do is just fold this in half. Make sure your fabric is as flat as possible. Just kind of hand press all the lines and bumps out so that when you cut this, it's cutting pretty even. Okay? So you're going to cut this in half, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to fold this again, so I'm cutting my front and back piece at the same time. And both are on the fold, so when I open it, I have both my pieces, less cutting time. Okay? So I'm going to take this little top, and I'm just going to fold it. Now make sure when you're making this that you are giving yourself some seam allowance. So this may seem pretty long, but I'm giving myself some seam allowance. So I'm just going to place this on my fabric, and I'm going to take the straps and fold those down, just so I'm cutting around the curve area of the shirt. If you're a little bit more advanced, you don't have to pin. I like to pin just so I know that I'm getting the right cut that I'm looking for. So let's get cutting. Now that we have everything pinned, we're just going to cut around. And I'm going to give myself a little bit more seam allowance just because when I'm making clothes for her, I like for them to last a little bit. And if your child is doing dance or cheerleading, you know how expensive these things can get. I don't make everything. I don't always make everything for her for dance. I tend to go buy it just because once I realize she's grown out of something, it's too late. I'm running in to the store that's in the dance studio and just purchasing something. So this year I will probably be making more, and the great thing about this color fabric is the same colors that her dance studio uses, red and black. So that's perfect. It can be a little tough if you're cutting 4 layers of fabric at the same time, but just keep going with it. If you got a good pair of scissors, you'll be okay. So now that we have it cut, I'm going to take this, and I just like to cut off my uneven part, just in case I'm going to use the scrap fabric for something else. So let's just set that aside. Take the pins out, and I'm getting ready to show you what to do with the back side. Because most of the time you don't want your back to look like your front, and it's a simple, easy step to cut your back. Oh, that's all stuck there. Okay, so I'm going to just take that out. I'm going to cut here at the bottom because it was folded. Simple, easy. Okay, so this is what my front piece is going to look like. Simple. So what I'm going to do for the back is I am just going to cut straight across for my back. Just because I want my back to be straight. I don't want the same design. And you can leave it if you want, that's fine. But if not, you can go ahead and cut yours straight, just like mine. Okay, so what I'm going to do first for mine is I'm actually going to add my rollover elastic. So I tend to never really cut a size. I just keep it long, and I just start at the edge and just go around, and then I cut as needed. So you can do that same thing. I'm actually going to use a zigzag stitch for this portion of the project. Like I said, you could go ahead and do the same thing. Zigzag is programmed into mine, so just go ahead and push my zigzag button. So with this rollover elastic, what you'll notice if you purchase this, and I'll put the link below where I get mine from, but you can get it pretty much from anywhere: eBay, Etsy, Amazon. You can look online and find it. They may sell this by the bolt in your fabric store. So what this has is a line, and I just tend to fold this on that line. Like I said, if you're a little bit more skilled or have more of a steady hand, you could freehand this. I tend to shake, so I am actually going to pin mine before I start sewing. So while I'm doing that, you go ahead and do the same thing. And I will also leave in the description where I purchased my spandex fabric from. I used to purchase it from fabric.com, which I still use for other fabric that I order. However, for spandex and like dancewear material, I buy it from this other store, which tends to be a little bit cheaper than fabric.com when it comes to that. I cut. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside because I'm going to need that again shortly. So like I said, let's put it on the zigzag stitch and let's start sewing. Make sure you're taking your pins out as you go. If you find that your fabric is slipping, just stop. It's okay to stop when you're working on a project. You know, I used to get so frustrated when I had to stop and reset and do things over, but you'd rather have it done right than done wrong and have to start over. So what I like to do is start with a small stitch, then I back stitch, just to secure that stitch into place. You do not have to pull on this. Like I said, this is a 4-way stretch. We're using a zigzag stitch, so we don't have to pull it. You could pull on it slightly, but I don't like to when I'm making, when I'm going around the collar, because it tends to make the collar fall a little bit. If you just want to give it a slight tug, that's fine, but don't go pulling and yanking on it, because then what it'll do is it'll wave up, and you don't want that because then it won't look as good. So just continue on with your zigzag stitch. Spandex fabric can be really slippery. with this one because it's silky. So I like to hold it down as much as possible. Okay, now that you're rounding it in, so all the way to the tip and back stitch. Now, one little tip I want to give you is when you're working with this type of fabric, if you find you're having trouble with it going through the foot, if you see that it's going to the side or you see that it's just not going through easy enough, there's two things you can do. You can put a little piece of tape on the bottom of your presser foot, or you can pin when you're pinning to go ahead and put some tissue paper and pin it and sew it at the same time. It will help it go through smoothly, and if you're using the tissue paper, you can just rip it right off when you're done and it won't even be there. It won't affect your seam. Okay, so now, as you can see, because I used that zigzag stitch, it's still really stretchy. So now what I'm going to do is go around my armholes here with the same color. If you want to do different colors, the colors of your dance studio or cheerleading studio, go ahead and use different colors. It's fine. You know, whatever works for you, that's great. I say do take my tutorials, make them your own, and even show me what you make. I love to see things. Either tag me on Twitter or, you know, post those pictures to my Facebook page, so that I can see what you made and see how you made it your own. And it gives other people inspiration. So I highly encourage you sharing your pictures with me. And when you get to this part, you're just going to go ahead and overlap the elastic with the first one we just put down, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes this can get a little tricky. You just have a little patience. If you have to start over, start over. The more you practice, the better you learn. Okay, so now that we have this pinned, we're going to use the same process that we used for the neck, the collar, and do the same thing on the other side, the other armhole. Okay, so now that we finished with the front, and this is what it looks like, I had to pull a little bit around the collar, which is right, it looks like that a little bit, but we're going to do the same thing, use the same concept with the back. So I'm just going to take what I have left here, and I'm going to fold this over just like I did with the front and go across, and then we'll start putting it together. And for our last and final thing, we'll do the straps. So for this, I'm actually not going to pin because I'm a little comfortable with this. I'm just going to start my first piece off, and once I get this one going, then I'll straighten the rest of it out. Just got to get the first piece started. I like to lay my elastic flat and then set my fabric right in that line, that fold line. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm actually only going to use 2 long strips, and when I'm done, I'm going to cut these so they make 4 short strips. So I'm going to show you what to do here. We're going to take this. What I like to do is fold it in half. Once I fold it in half, I take one side, line it up with the middle, take the other side, and line it up with the middle. You want to make sure that your iron steam is off. And you also want to make sure you have this on low setting. Normally there isn't a spandex setting on your iron. There's not one on mine. So I put my iron in between the silk and the rayon setting and turn my steam off, just because this fabric tends to burn really easily, or it could stick to your iron. So I try my best to fold both at the same time as well as iron at the same time. And you're going to do these with both strips. Try to make sure the sides are as even as possible because you're going to take this and you're going to fold it again. So now, and I also have a tutorial within my videos that says bias tape. So that's exactly how you make bias tape. Bias tape and binding is simply kind of like what we did here. And you would use the same process. You can do an open face or you can do a fold, kind of like this or like this. And it can be used to make spaghetti straps. It can be used as a border just like this. A lot of people use it when they're quilting and making blankets. It's perfect for anything. This is why I always tell people, keep your straps. You never know what you may need them for, and there's always something you can make with your scraps. So now that we have that, we're just going to fold this and iron down. And the best part about this fabric is it doesn't fray. So you really don't have to worry about edges all the time. Like with this, if I didn't want to give it a hem, I don't have to because it's not going to fray. The cut is as even as it's possibly going to get. So you can just leave it like that if you don't want to take the time to sew a hem. However, I am going to sew a hem today, just for those of you who don't know how. I always try to make my items look as professional as possible, except when I'm having lazy days. Okay, so now that we have that done, you know how to do the second strap, so I want you to go ahead and do that one yourself. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside and start with my second strap. Okay, now it's time to sew our straps together. And for this, we're just going to use a straight stitch. You don't really have to worry about these straps being too stretchy. So we're just going to take them, keep the fold, and try to get as close to the edge as possible when sewing. Don't forget to backstitch. This is very important to secure that stitch in. Now that we have our two long strips, what I'm going to do is fold it in half. And these still might be too long, but we'll see when I'm done with it. I'm going to fold this one in half. That makes two. I'm going to take this one, fold it in half, cut it. So it makes it easier and you don't have to do four separate strips. I can't talk today. Okay, so what I'm going to do with these two, and still we haven't yet put our two pieces together. So we're going to do this before we do any of that. So what I have here is two straps, and I kind of crisscrossed it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just sew that right now. Do a straight stitch across the crisscross. I like to go all the way across first, then I'll do my back stitch. I like to go over it a few times. It's just my preference. Do what's more comfortable for you. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the other side. And just cut off any little piece that you don't want there. Okay. Straight stitch all the way across. little piece here. Make sure you don't get the seam that you just put in there. So there it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to attach the first piece right up here. I'm going to actually put my white part, my white tip from the front of my shirt. I'm going to attach the back to it just like that, and I'm just going to sew that right now across. And you could pin it if you want, if you need to pin it. If you're still not comfortable with the way you're doing things, go ahead and pin it. For me, I just don't need to right now because I use my fingernails to hold stuff down a lot of times. So again, I'm going to go straight across first, and this can be a little thick, so be careful and make sure you have the right kind of needle into your sewing machine. And I'm going to back stitch and go across again one more time, just so I know that it's secure. Okay, and so this should be hanging at this point like this. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. So now that we have this together, so we have 4 straps, 2 on each side. And I know you're wondering, what are we going to do with them? Well, it's time for me to show you. We're going to take our back piece, and what we're going to do is kind of set it out, and we're still not going to sew the sides together just yet. So what I'm going to do is actually take this one from my left side. Make sure that when you get ready to attach it, that it's actually on the right side over the shoulder. So, okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the other side. And like I said, you want to make sure that it's going to be right when you put it over the shoulder. So I'm just kind of crisscrossing everything on. And then I'm going to take our next set of straps, and I'm just going to cross that over and kind of just put it right. You can either put it on top or right next to the other strap. You can make a cool design if you want and make it a little further out. It's your choice. You can even just play around with it to see how you want it. I'm just at this point going to do everything the same, so she has double straps like so. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to tell you at this point, go back, turn everything on the wrong side, and let's get those sides sewn together as well. So I'm just going to pin this, and I'm just going to sew everything at the same time. The sides as well as those back straps we just attached. Alright, so let's get sewing. So what I'm going to do is just go back here and put this back part through first. And make sure it's down enough so you can sew this as securely as possible. And I am actually going to put back on my zigzag stitch. Make sure everything is laying flat. Back stitch. And keep going. And I'm going to back stitch. Pull this out a little bit, just like so. And then I'm not even going to cut this right now. I'm going to cut it when I'm done. So going to take out this needle. Back down. Okay. Go through. Back stitch. And keep going. So what you're going to have is this string from when you pulled it, if you do what I did. So just cut that off. Sorry about the noise, my son's leaving. Try to do this as quick as possible without the noise, but when you have a house with 7 kids, 6 living at home, you tend to have a lot of noise. Okay, so keep that stitch going. I did give myself, when I cut, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's what I'm going to use to sew the sides together. And you will find that 1/4 inch on your sewing machine. Just line your fabric up to that 1/4 inch and you'll have your seam allowance. So we're going to back stitch. Just keep that zigzag stitch going all the way down. Remember not to yank on it, just kind of guide it through. I'm just holding it on both sides because, like I said, this fabric is very slippery. So now that we have that done, before I go to flip mine over to the right side, what I'm actually going to do is hem the bottom. Okay, I'm not sure at what point my camera cut off on me, but I just want to show you our completed project here. If there's any portion of this that didn't get recorded, don't worry, we will do this again. So what I did for the straps, just in case this didn't get recorded, I crisscrossed the straps. Once I cut everything, I crisscrossed them here, and I attached them to my back. So we kind of have like a racer back type deal with 4 strips going on. I don't know if you can see, I'll lay it flat here. And I hemmed my bottom. It's not the prettiest, but it's done and she'll still wear it. So I kind of just crisscrossed everything over to the back, so when she puts it on, it'll kind of be like a crisscross. So these 2 straps will, her arms will actually go through the sides here, and then these 2 straps are kind of like overlapping each other, so you can see where her arms will go in. And this is the front of it. Simple, easy. If you have any questions, if you need anything repeated, I'm gonna put this video out regardless of what didn't get put on there. I can replay this and show you how to do the straps, but again, I made that long strip, I cut it in half, so I had 2 pieces on each side. I attached the 2 pieces here at the tip, and then I just kind of crisscrossed the 4 strips, interlocking with each other. I did zigzag stitch on the side seams of the shirt as well as the bottom hem. If you want to make a hem, that's fine. If you don't have to. But like I said, this is a 4-way stretch. So this is going to be really stretchy. She's going to have room to grow. I know I made the straps long enough to where she will have that room to grow with the straps as well as the crop top. If you have any questions, if there's anything you want to see me make, please don't hesitate to ask me. I will put it on the list. I do have a few videos that I want to get out before the month of July is up. I am on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. On my Twitter page, I'm Mama MAMA_07. I am not Nika Womack on Twitter. For Facebook, for those of you who don't know, I still regulate my Facebook pretty heavily because I have a lot of family, a lot of friends that are on my Facebook page. So I monitor who I befriend and who I don't friend on Facebook. Most of the time, if I know that you are from my YouTube or my Twitter, I will accept you, so don't worry about that. I always say do what you love. I love sewing, I love creating, and that's why I created this channel, to teach you how to do some of the things that I know how to do. Do things the simpler way, do things the cheaper way. That's always my motto. It's always a cheaper way to do something. And if I can make something for my daughter without spending $30 to $40 on a crop top for dance or cheerleading, I'm going to do that. And I hope this tutorial helped you out greatly. Again, if you have any questions, if there's any part of this video that didn't get recorded, I will explain to you how I did everything. Just ask me in the comments. If you would like to see our family on a daily basis, go check out our family channel, and that's also in the description. I will leave where I got my rollover elastic from, as well as where I purchased my spandex fabric from, in the description. As always, I will see you for our next project. Happy sewing!